So I was on Reverb one night, and I saw the strangest thing I've ever seen. We've seen the Cosmic Stew out of the Gibson mod collection, but this appeared to be something a little bit different. It called to me. It said, "There's 2 other offers on this, and it's only been listed for 5 minutes. It's gonna sell. You need to buy it now, Trogly, and review it." Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. And with the power of space magic, it's here already. Let's get it unboxed. Well, that was easy. It did say something in the description about having a case and it also being painted, and that's definitely the case here. But unfortunately, it's only the front that got painted. This must have been owned by an art student, just like my monster caster that you can check out in this video over here. But sometimes passion projects are the best. Let's go ahead and check this thing out. Oh my. Okay, it feels all right. I was a little bit scared because you never know when you're buying online, but it does have a glossy feel to it. Because this very easily could have just been airbrushed and then not felt that good. But how cool is this? It's just a interesting little space-themed SG. I thought we would do it just for fun here, as well as learn about older style Gibson SG specials, because that's what this is. However, normally when you think SG special, nowadays you think of one of those blue or red ones. It's a wrap tail, it's got the 2 P90s. That's what Gibson currently offers as a special. But back in the 90s and early 2000s, the special was basically a stripped down SG standard. You still had your 2 humbuckers, but they were uncovered. They gave you a bridge and tailpiece system just like a standard, so you don't have to worry about the wrap tail stuff. They still gave you the full control layout. Essentially, the body stays the same outside of not having pickup covers, and it's the neck that is significantly different. We don't have the trapezoid inlays. We don't have the binding along the edges. The headstock would only have a Gibson silkscreen on it. You don't have the crown. Now this one, they went a little bit fancy and they replaced the Gibson decal with their cool custom airbrushing artwork. So it kind of helps make this one look a little bit fancier. But the listing for this one said it was anywhere between 1991 through 2011. That's just because that's what Reverb has a category on these for. But the fact that this one still has an ABR1 bridge, that told me it was either a 90s one or an early 2000s. So here's the moment of truth. We do still have a serial number on this, and it dates to 2002, about midway through the year, maybe a little bit more. So when these things were new, they were not all that expensive because of what I just told you. They were stripped down SG standards, essentially. So it makes sense that somebody would pick this up and make a little art project out of it. Nowadays, prices on these older ones have started to rise up a little bit. However, these are still excellent players if you're just looking for a budget level SG. I think my favorite thing about this artwork has to be this doofy little SG swirling around the earth there. It gives it a very quirky aesthetic to it, and I just love it. Everything else is just very planetary here, with some stars and astro streaks. It's a little bit of red mixed with some black. The headstock was very tastefully done. And I like that the backplate and pickguard were also painted up just to give it an all-inclusive design here. So to learn more about the Space SG, I suppose we should throw it on the workbench to take a look at its parts and specs. Inside the mystery Space SG. Alright, so I decided to go ahead and polish it up, and it really just transformed the feel. Listen to it now. Nice and smooth. However, I left one area unpolished just to show you the difference. Now, as far as the sides, they definitely need like a professional buffing job, I think, to get to the same nice glossiness as the top. But overall, I would say I was fairly impressed with the quality of the finish. Now, if you get it in the light just right, you can see there's actually quite a bit of contamination within it. So this was definitely maybe not somebody's first time doing it, but they're still considered like amateur, or maybe they just don't have the right tools and the perfect clean environment. Because I think that's what a lot of what I cleaned off was just dirt and grime. Also, around the pickguard, I know it looks like the finish was there and like I had to break it to open it. I mean, maybe somebody else did that at one point in time, but that was there even before I opened it. There's just some unevenness in the finish. That might just been from where they masked it off to stay natural. Let's go ahead and capture these specs. So I just figured these would be like the original Gibson pickups, right? And I was a little bit scared if this pickguard was even gonna come off, but it was definitely painted on the side. It wasn't stuck to it, it just freely came up. But it was interesting to see that they opted for not painting the pickguard area underneath it. So I think it'd be kind of cool just to install some pickup rings and then you have just like this interesting natural wooden pickguard vibe. but the pickups that are in it are real deal 50s PAFs. Nah, just kidding, they're like 57 classics. So they're still Gibson pickups, just slightly higher end than what would have originally came in here, which is some sort of a 490 series pickup. You can also tell these pickups originally had covers on them, but somebody removed them to leave the original look of this SG Special. But within the circuit, the bridge reads 7.85 k ohms, our neck position 7.8, and the middle position for fun 3.91. As far as the bridge, it is a true Gibson ABR1 that has the wire retainer over the saddles, and it's a full weight tailpiece, looks to be the original. We have 2 volumes and 2 tones, 1 set for each pickup. And then this is kind of funny, our poker chip, when I first got it, it was like this, and I was like, I need to fix that. But I tried moving this and tightening that down, but that's as far as it goes. So I think the new finish is a little bit thicker, and it just makes it so this cannot be secured. And it's kind of fun to spin that around. It kind of reminds me of like Saturn's rings or something. I'm sure that was completely unintentional, but let's just go ahead and appreciate the artwork here a little bit more. It's a pretty cool SG for just being somebody's project. But here's the thing about refinished guitars, you never know what's hiding underneath your finish. So there could have been a heel repair, there could have been a headstock repair, but we'll talk a little bit more about that on the back. I mean, looking at the heel, everything looks okay to me, so I don't think we have anything like that on this particular one. But again, I didn't paint it. I really can't tell you. And if you get it in the light just right, you can still see the wood grain. That's why I'm pretty confident if there was some sort of a repair, you'd probably be able to still see it. But moving on from our mahogany body, we've got a mahogany neck with a rosewood fretboard. So this whole SG Special model is more so akin to the SG Tribute that is still made today, except for the fact that this had the mahogany neck instead of the modern maple. But we've got our dot inlays here, 22 medium jumbo style frets. Nothing too out of the ordinary. This was a pretty rough fretboard when I got it, so I cleaned it and conditioned it. It's looking a little bit better. But we've got a 24 3/4 inch scale length, a nut width of 1.69 inches, with a 12th fret of 2.05, first fret neck depth 0.87, and quite chunky, 1.01 by the 12th. Here's a look at that neck profile, first fret and 12th fret, just a nice rounded C shape. As far as SGs go, these have a nice rounded neck profile. Like, they're not huge by any means, but a lot of 61 style SGs are very flat and wide feeling. This one kind of just feels like a regular Gibson neck. Now the finish does create a little bit of a ridge right here, and there's definitely a little bit of fret sprout going on this example. So if you could get somebody to round all that over, I think this would feel a little bit better, but it's not atrocious by any means. The back of the neck is nice and glossy. However, once you get up here, that's when you start to get that satin eggshell feel to it, because they really just didn't do the best job glossing over the edges, probably because they didn't have the right tools. But our headstock is looking beautiful here with our intergalactic Gibson logo. Original Grover tuners yet. And to be honest, I'm shocked they didn't paint the truss rod cover something different. Now that I've got it all strung back up with fresh strings, dialed the action in, the neck needed a serious truss rod adjustment. It's actually looking and playing pretty good now. So it wouldn't surprise me if this has been sitting for like 10 to 15 years plus just as a display piece rather than something that somebody gigged. But let's go ahead and check out the back now. We'll start with our control cavity here. This actually looks factory untouched as far as the pots and the wiring goes. Now as far as the pickup wiring, yeah, that definitely tells me the pickups have been replaced, but they're still quality Gibson pickups, but you've still got your pot with the original build date. And we'll just take a second to appreciate the artwork once again. So I also cleaned up the back, so it's a little bit glossier, but you can tell they didn't spend as much time back here trying to get it to be perfectly glossy. Like the center, fantastic. Everything right here is great. But up here right by the horns, that's when you start to get that more satin eggshell feel again. And then as far as contaminations, I mean, you can see a couple. It's mainly prevalent down here. There's like some dust or something within the finish, but it kind of works with the whole space theme because you got all the space dust and stars all over it, so it's not as apparent if you were just trying to be like a flat pink color or something. And they installed Schaller strap locks for our strap buttons. The neck, as we were talking about earlier, it's really just like the edges of it right here. So you might catch that as you're soloing. But that more satiny feel right here isn't the worst thing in the world. But if you're looking for a uniform gloss feel, you've got that on the first 75% of the neck or so. But you've got some cool star stuff going on here. And here you can see that phenomenon I was talking about, how you can actually see the wood grain underneath the finish. I'm not seeing any breaks or cracks, but that doesn't mean it's not there. So whenever you buy a refinished guitar, just assume there is a repair, is a good rule of thumb. So being a late 2002, there's actually two different models that this one could be. The SG Special we were talking about, but 2002 is also the first year of the SG Faded, meaning it would have had a satin finish. But the first year of SG Fadeds had ebony fretboards with crescent moon inlays. That does tell us this was indeed 100% in fact an SG Special stock from the factory. Another way you can tell this was a special rather than a faded is the fact that we have the true ABR1 bridge that is mounted directly into the body. There are no studs on this one. So it's a little bit higher end than one of those faded series ones. But the moons would have looked great with the whole planetary thing going on. I probably would have had to have kept the guitar if it was that. All said and done, it weighs 6 pounds, 9.1 ounces. So let's go ahead and plug it in and hear how this intergalactic SG sounds. Alright, this SG is actually very nice. It's not neck divey in the slightest. Now that I have it on the strap and I'm playing it, it is very chunky for an SG. And this Neck 57 Classic is just beautiful. Very thick. So obviously the middle position will sound pretty good too. The bridge, I think, will shine a little bit more in distorted land. So let's go ahead and head to that now. Now that we know all about the Space SG, what are my final thoughts on this? I picked this up just for a fun review and demo. People like seeing that Cosmic Stew finish that the mod collection did, so I figured, maybe people would like seeing this. However, I'm very impressed. I mean, the finish, it's pretty good in most cases. There's a few areas that we discussed that could have been done better, but it's all about the tones out of this. I totally agree with putting these beautiful 57 Classic pickups in here. That neck pickup is just glorious. The bridge pickup sounds nice and bitey. When you turn on the distortion, this has that really round classic rock sound, very similar to how T-tops sound. And finally, I know a model to suggest when people ask me, hey, what's a really good fat neck SG that I could get? I would definitely suggest one of these early 2000s SG specials. I'm not sure if the older ones are like that, but this has a very nice neck profile to it if you don't like the typical slim SG neck. And, this example, not neck diving, is great. The only thing I noticed is there's a little bit of a grounding hum. I mean, it's not too crazy, but if you were to gig this on stage, you'd probably want to do some additional shielding or figure out what's going on with that. So if you're interested in being the next owner of this one, you can check it out on my website, troglysguitarshow.com. And I will see you guys tomorrow on the next episode for more guitar fun. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, you might enjoy this other space-themed guitar, the Gibson Modern Flying V. I'd suggest checking out the gold one because I went really crazy Star Trek opening scene stuff there. It's worth a watch if you haven't seen it.